This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Hey guys, it's Max. Welcome to yet another video. In this one, we're going to be talking about the Tamron 28-75 F2.8 lens. It has been just over 6 months since I purchased this lens and did my initial videos on it. I did a hands-on type of review where we found some issues, and that's right when the autofocusing issues were coming out. Then I did some comparisons to a couple different Sony lenses. Those links are going to be down in the video description below. So 6 months later, what is my follow-up? What are the good things about it, which there are a lot, and what are the bad things and some things I do not like? And yes, there are a couple, so make sure you guys stick around for that. First off, I do want to say I apologize for my voice. I have been quite sick. I know I haven't posted a video in a little bit, but I'm starting to get a little bit better. Hopefully my voice is still kind of messed up right now, but bear with that. I also want to say that I'm shooting on a new camera. I only made one video so far with this camera. I have a whole nother setup, some new accessories and stuff like that. So if you want to guess based on the image what I'm shooting with, let me know down in the comment section below. And of course, all of the links are in the video description. So the Sony A7 III is the best-selling full-frame camera in 2018, and it actually brought Sony up to the #1 spot in full-frame cameras. It's very impressive, and that's for a couple of reasons. First, it's $2,000, 10 frames per second, 24 megapixels with a new sensor, really fast autofocusing, dual card slots, 4K, great battery life. There's a lot of great features packed into this camera for the price point. And along with that, you probably thought, why am I switching to another video topic? The Tamron 28-75, I think, is probably the best-selling lens for Sony in 2018. Now, I don't have any numbers on that, but this thing is constantly out of stock. Even right now, if you look at it, I have 3 links to Adorama, B&H, and Amazon. Now that's because this thing comes in at $799, and if you look at Sony's alternative, which is a standard 24-70, it's a G Master, it's a great lens, and I did do a full comparison between these two. That thing is a massive $2,200. So I think now that we have a budget camera, which is fantastic, feature packed, people needed a budget lens, and Tamron came out at the perfect time to give you a great pairing here for $2,800 a setup like this. And not only, just like the A7 III, is it a great price, the features are great as well. So you have 28-75, which is a great range, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. You also have something that is really quick overall at autofocusing. I'll also talk about that in a little bit, but it's also super, super sharp. In my comparison, it actually was sharper than the G Master. The images and the video coming out of it are fantastic. So as far as images, 6 months later, I have no complaints. It is so versatile. Now, one thing that I absolutely love, and Vadim absolutely loves about this lens, is the minimal focusing distance. I mean, this is amazing. We have a macro lens, the 50mm F2.8, and we are barely using it now. We used to use it a lot more often, but since this lens came into our inventory, we are using it for a bunch of macro type shots. Now, the other thing that I absolutely love about it is the size and the weight. The fact that it's small and light, and yes, that's why it's not a 24mm, it's a 28, because they needed and wanted to get it to be this size and weight, and it's perfect for this camera. It's so balanced. You actually have some room for your fingers compared to the G Master, which my large hands are kind of like crammed in here and getting pushed down by the lens barrel, but the size and the weight is just really nice. It's really pleasant to go out and shoot with compared to the G Master, where it's so front heavy, it's so large, it's very cumbersome compared to this lens right here. Now, before I get into follow-ups on some of the previous issues I talked about and which ones actually mattered and which ones didn't, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor for this video, and that's Squarespace. I've built 5 websites using Squarespace and have been recommending them for over 4 years now. So when they reached out and wanted to sponsor the channel, it was a no-brainer. Whether you're wanting to build a portfolio site, e-commerce, blog, or anything else, they've got you covered. They have an easy-to-use website builder and great templates with automatic versions for mobile devices. Follow the link in the description to start your free trial and get 10% off on your first purchase. Seriously guys, I highly recommend Squarespace. Not only does it include a domain name, it's super easy to use. I have multiple websites with that are WordPress and Squarespace. It saves you a bunch of time, but it also comes with a SSL security certificate, which you have to pay for separately and set up. So it is such a good value. Definitely go and check them out using the link in the description. Now back onto the Tamron 28-75 F2.8 lens. Now the first issue that I had with this lens was the fact that the focusing ring, instead of being close to the edge of the lens, it's closer to the body. So our zoom ring and our focusing ring is swapped. This was really, really weird for me. In the first kind of hands-on review, I kept switching over, and maybe for the first month or so, I kind of had that issue. After that, I got used to it and I am having no problem at all. Now, one issue we did have, especially during that first hands-on review, is the autofocusing, where it just would not work. It would focus on things other than when where your focusing point is. So that was addressed fairly quickly. I think a couple weeks after it came out, they put out a firmware update that was really easy to do in camera, so you don't have to send the lens out, and it fixed that issue altogether. So that is very nice. After that point, I have not had any issues, and the newer lenses that they're shipping out, that already had that firmware fix updated. Now let's get into the two actual issues I have with this lens that I wish were different. I'll leave the worst one for last. So the first one I mentioned is autofocusing in low light. Now in good lighting condition, man, this thing works excellent, just as good as the Sony lenses. But when it gets low light conditions, especially if you're underexposing, that's when I'm starting to see some issues with it. Now I want to mention that all cameras and all lenses perform worse in low light conditions, but I feel like this one slows down more so than the Sony lenses. Now, if you're exposing properly, it's low light, but your ISOs are up there, it does great, it still does a good job, but when you're really underexposing and it's low light, that's when it's having an issue. You can't switch over to manual focus, and it still will focus. It's not like it starts hunting like crazy or anything like that, but it does slow down more so than the Sony lenses. So keep that in mind if you're looking to buy this lens or you're trying to decide between a Sony lens and this Tamron. If you shoot in a lot of low light, underexposed scenarios, I would consider that to be a part of your buying decision. Now, the second thing that bugs me the most about this lens that I really wish was different is the barrel distortion. When I compare this to the 24-70 G Master, you saw how much distortion this lens has, where the G Master has pretty much no distortion, even though it is a wider lens. Now, there's two things to that. One, it's much larger, much heavier. They have more elements in there to correct that. And they also have software fixing. So that's one advantage that Sony has with having a Sony lens on a Sony body, that they're applying software correction to fix some of that. Now, the G Master is actually a very good lens with very little distortion. So there's not that much software correction going on. But the 24-105 f4 that I compare this lens to, which is more in a closer price range, that actually has quite a bit of distortion, but the camera bodies fix it automatically. Now, since this is a third-party lens, I don't think they have the ability to do that, or at least not yet. It'd be amazing if they were. You get quite a bit of distortion, and for photos, it's not a big deal. It's one click, autocorrect in Lightroom, and it fixes all your issues. But for video, it is much more of a pain. It does take longer to fix. So that does add extra time in post, and it does suck. And if there was one thing that I could change on this lens, that would be my choice, is to have less barrel distortion. Now, on to the last thing I want to comment about this lens. One question that maybe a lot of you guys actually have is how limiting is having the wide end be 28mm instead of 24. Now, for me personally, I really like a 28mm focal length. Now, there were two situations in the last 6 months or so where I really wish I could go a little bit wider and that I had a 24-70. One was shooting a time lapse of a building downtown. I just needed a little bit more room and I couldn't get back far enough. And the other was shooting out of the back of a pickup truck, going down different roads, doing a commercial for a trucking company. I just needed a little bit wider. That would have been nice, and it was limiting. But two situations in half a year and so much shoots with this lens, I will say that I would not make the trade of, even if we kept the price the same, having this be much larger and heavier, which it would if it was a 24-70 f2.8, or having it be a 28-75 and being lighter and smaller. I would take that trade-off. I think the convenience and the balance with a body like this is really, really nice. So let me know your thoughts on this 6-month update down in the comment section below to answer the question. I absolutely don't regret. I almost said yes. No, I don't regret buying this lens. I love this lens. And yes, I would absolutely suggest it. As long as those few issues that I brought up aren't a big deal to you, and I think for most people they're not, I would definitely suggest picking one of these up. Once again, there's links in the video description. Check them all out to see where it's popping up in stock. Let me know if you guys have any other questions in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. This has been Max. Thank you guys for joining me and supporting me over these years. I hope you guys have a great New Year's, and I'll see you in the next video.